Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here this morning. This room, if you don't know, has amazingly high energy, and it's been blessed to be the recipient of additional loving energy since we've been here. And I don't know how long we've been here, but it seems like it's about 12 or 13 years. And people who are really energy sensitive walk into this room and they say, whoa, this is an amazing place. And that's true, and it's true for a reason, and it's true because guess what? We're all mystics. We are all mystics. Mysticism has been around since humans were on the planet. It is universal experience. Every religion known to humankind, including all of the indigenous people, have mystic connections. And those mystic connections don't require a mediator. You don't need to go to church. You don't need to have a priest bless you. You don't need any of those things because this incredible energetic matrix that is everywhere present in the universe is available to each one of us. Simply, it is available. All we have to do is claim it. Simple, isn't it? And the thing that's so unusual about this mysticism is that the mystics of every tradition known to humankind say essentially the same thing, that we are all one. Not two, not 2 billion, but one. So what is it that is connected? What can possibly be connected between physical bodies that are widely disparate and separate seemingly from one another? Well, it's the energetic matrix that lies beneath what you see in the physical world. That's what is one. It's that connection with divinity. Mysticism literally celebrates the awareness of our joint divinity. That's who and what we are. Swami Vivekananda said it best. He said, mystics in every religion speak one tongue and teach the same truth. And that is the way it is. Mysticism itself is free from creeds, dogma, and rules. They simply don't exist because everyone is on their own. Everyone gets to access this incredible energetic matrix, this field of divinity on their own. And there is no right or wrong. There is simply your experience. There is no movement into missionary worlds, because to be a missionary, you have to believe that you're right and someone else is wrong. And so you set out to convince them that you're right. And that just doesn't exist in the world of mysticism. Mysticism has no interest in making anyone wrong. Mysticism is the direct experience of the absolute. It is falling in love with the truth of our divinity. And it achieves conscious awareness of ultimate reality. It is the science and the art of the spiritual life. It's not vague. It's not a mystery. And it's not magic. It's not concerned with the future or the past. Its focus is on the eternal moment of now. Father Anthony DeMello, a Jesuit priest who passed from this plane in 1987, said, "Religion is a fruitless effort to mark a pathway on the shifting sands of the desert. The infinite cannot be trapped, described, or noted. We are one with the infinite, even as we pretend we are not." And for that, his writings were banned by then Joseph Cardinal Ratzinger, who became Pope, what's his name, the 16th. I've forgotten his name. Oh, well, doesn't matter. And that's what happens to a lot of mystics, is they get branded as heretics and rid out of town on a rail. But we have had mystical experiences ourselves. I'm sure that most of us have been at some point or another in awe of nature. Perhaps it's a walk in the woods. Perhaps it's marveling at the glorious colors of fall trees changing. Perhaps it's viewing wildlife. Perhaps it's the aroma of gorgeous flowers. Perhaps you've been up north in the pine tree forest and you smell the pines and you say, I just love this. Perhaps it's the crashing surf. But we've all had these experiences of being in nature and being absolutely awestruck. Seeing God in nature is the mysticism of all lovers of nature. Farmers, gardeners, campers, hikers, and all indigenous people. Henry David Thoreau went into the woods, he said, to live deliberately, to confront the essentials of life, and to make sure that when it came time to die, that he would not discover that he had never really lived. Nature mysticism is the simplest, oldest, and most common form of mystical experience. Falling in love is something that we can all agree is a mystical experience, because all of a sudden we are overcome with joy. We are floating on a cloud. We walk down the street and we feel like we're not even touching the ground. Sometimes we even break into song and write poetry. And falling in love is something that the soul yearns, absolutely yearns to do. Falling in love is simply wonderful. Falling in love is bigger than we are. The more we let it happen, the more it will happen. Artists, composers, and sculptors have often related the influences on their artistry that seemed to emanate from unseen sources. Mozart began playing the piano at age 3. By age 5, he was composing. Beethoven wrote some of his greatest works after he was totally deaf. It makes you wonder where that came from. How did that happen? Hildegard of Bingen was an abbess in the 13th century who wrote some of the most enchantingly beautiful mystical songs that I've ever heard. And in this very room, one of the things that's added to the energetic feeling in this room is Norma Gentili singing on various occasions over the last few years the chants of Hildegard. They are truly transportation to another realm, because Hildegard was a mystic. She got these flashes of songs in an instant. And that's another thing that happens often in mystical experiences, is that they happen outside of time. They don't take any time at all as the clock moves. They simply are present. Another way that we have experienced mysticism is dreams. Dreams are altered state experiences where we temporarily abandon our rational mind. They are a way for the subconscious whole to communicate with the conscious part. Freud said, dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. And according to Carl Jung, wholeness results from establishing a working relationship with the unconscious level of the psyche. If information from the unconscious is attended to, it can move us toward greater equilibrium, health, creativity, and a sense of well-being. The marriage of inner and outer worlds provides aliveness, meaning, insight, and excitement, making the dream a mystical experience. William James was a philosopher and pragmatist who taught the very first class in psychology as a separate class from philosophy at Harvard in 1895. And he wrote the classic Varieties of Religious Experience in 1902. And he described 4 traits of mystical experiences. The first is ineffability, and that is the inability of words to capture what has been experienced. Words fail to describe those experiences. You can be in nature and be in awe, and you find it difficult to come up with the words to say how you feel. The second trait is passivity, and that seems to be that we don't control these experiences. They just seem to happen without our specific intent that it should happen. It's out of our hands. The third trait is they are transient. They don't take time. They operate outside of time and space. And the fourth trait is noetic, and that is that you come to understand and learn and know something important. And those are the 4 characteristics that seem to line up with most mystical experiences. And there are literally hundreds, perhaps thousands, of mystics who we may have heard of. Names you probably know: St. Francis of Assisi, Thich Nhat Hanh, Jesus, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Gandhi, Carlos Castaneda, Meister Eckhart, Buddha, Paramahansa Yogananda, Helen Schucman, Rumi, Hafiz, Gandhi, Edgar Cayce, Ernest Holmes, Osho, Albert Einstein, Rudolf Steiner, St. Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, Thomas Merton, Khalil Gibran, Dalai Lama, Krishnamurti, David Hawkins. Well, you get the idea. There are lots and lots of mystics. We could spend hours, days, talking about each one and barely have scratched the surface. And then on top of that, there are the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people who've had near-death experiences. These are deeply mystical experiences. They transcend the physical world. The universal story of a near-death experience is traveling after having viewed a body on a hospital bed or in a car wreck or something, through a tunnel, approaching a light, seeing a being of light, going through a life review, and then learning that it's not their time and coming back. And those are experiences that happen without regard to the physical body, the physical senses. Because indeed, in many cases, the body is essentially clinically dead. But something, the consciousness, is living beyond the physical body. And that's what has the mystical experience. And that's what allows us as human beings having a body, but utilizing part of our grander self to transcend the physical limitations of our five senses and a physical world. These are truly powerful experiences. They are life-changing. In fact, life-saving. Life-saving, because there have been amazing healings that have taken place as a result of near-death experiences. So the question is, obviously, how does this apply to you? Well, I encourage you to notice the times when you've entered the mystical world. Have you ever thought of someone and then within minutes or half a day, they call you on the telephone? Has that ever happened? Well, it happened to me just last week. It was stunning. I woke up one morning, I was thinking of my friend Bob, and by noon he had called me. And it was just absolutely stunning. And I know that many of you, if not all of us, have been in awe of nature's grandeur on many occasions. Has your intuition ever given you a hunch or an idea that solved the problem? These are examples of the mystical world that is available to everyone. There is a universal field of information available. A few weeks ago, Luriel talked about our guides and angels who are available to help us. And they, not having physical bodies, have direct access to this field, this energetic matrix that underlies the entire universe. And they would be delighted to help us. You can help them help you by being open and simply asking for help. You can practice your connection to the energetic matrix by trying to guess who's on the phone the next time it rings. You can listen quietly for guidance when you're problem solving. Try meditation. Pay attention to your dreams. Test your hunches. Listen to your gut. Spend time in nature. feel more and think less. Align with your values and release your resistance and your doubts. This is absolutely available for everyone. And you can fool yourself by saying, oh, well, I've never had those experiences and I don't expect to. And like Henry Ford said, believe you can, believe you can't. Either way, you're right. So give up your disbelief, set it aside for a moment, and practice becoming aware of your connection to mystical worlds. So I want to share with you the 3 mystical experiences that I've been blessed with on my journey from yuppie atheist to practicing mystic. In 1985, I was the classic yuppie. I often joked that I wish I had a t-shirt that said, "He who dies with the most toys wins." In 1985, we were living the life of privilege. You know, we had a trophy house out in the country, 12 acres of land, woods, a pond. I had a little red sports car in the garage. You know, I was a card-carrying atheist. And our oldest daughter was in the summer before her senior year in high school. She went to Interlochen Music Camp. She was in the World Youth Symphony Orchestra, and we were proud as peacocks. So we journeyed up to sit through a concert on a Sunday afternoon, and it happened to be Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, orchestra and chorus. And we were sitting there just loving it, just absolutely loving the fabulous music, the great voices in the chorus. And all of a sudden, tears started streaming down my face. And Judy reached over and said, "Are you all right? Do we have to leave?" I said, "No, we're good, we're good." And what had happened to me was just out of nowhere, completely, I knew something. I describe it as a noetic experience. I knew something that I had never even dreamed to ask a question about. And what I was given to understand is that underneath everything in the universe lies this interconnected matrix of magnificence. Well, guess what? Judy and I talked for 4.5 hours all the way home from Interlochen to Ann Arbor and said, where did that come from? How did that happen? What does that mean? And it was months before I could even begin to process how in the world something like that had happened to me. And what it boiled down to was that it was the kick in the butt that got me moving back into a world of spirit. And ultimately, it led me to find a metaphysical church that I thought was what I wanted to do. And then in 1994, I was actually physically at Unity Village studying to be a licensed Unity teacher. And one night we lived in a motel-like structure at Unity Village for 2 weeks while we were in class. These were students from all over the country who were studying together. And one night I was meditating, and all of a sudden, I was out in front of my body. I had literally an out-of-body experience. I was aware that I wasn't sitting back in the chair, but that I was somewhere in front. And I felt this absolutely ineffable feeling of love. I was wrapped in the arms of love, and I couldn't imagine what was happening to me. And I didn't hear words, but I got this message. Relax. Everything's cool. You're just going to be fine. And at some point after that, I was back in my body, and I woke from meditation, and I said to myself, well, that was interesting. Was I dreaming? What in the heck happened to me? So I went to bed and got up the next morning to go to class, and on the way, stopped at the cafeteria for breakfast, sat down with the people I'd been eating with for the 2 weeks I'd been there. And one of my friends looked up at me and said, damn it, David, what have you done to yourself? You look 10 years younger this morning. And I said, well, let me tell you what happened to me last night. And that was the moment that I knew that that had actually happened. Because I thought maybe I'm losing my mind. Maybe I'm just conjuring up these dreams. But it was at that moment that I knew that that had really happened to me. And then in 2004, in October, I heard that Judith Coates was going to be in town channeling Jesus, and hooked up with Barbara Brodsky channeling Aaron. And I knew at that point that Aaron and Jesus had been boyhood buddies in Jerusalem and environs. And I said, well, I'm going to catch this. I'm going to find out what this is all about. I gave away my ticket to the football game. And if you know me, that doesn't happen very often. There was a fall football Saturday with a home game at Michigan. And I went to Chelsea, to the Friends Center for this workshop. And just prior to that, I had gotten a hold of a copy of the portrait that Glenda Green had painted in her studio of an image that Jesus had projected into her studio. And I read the book, and I was just amazed. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing portrait. And I couldn't, that had been within a week or two of this workshop. So I went to the workshop, and I was enjoying myself. Barbara Brodsky led off, and she was telling about her experience, and then Aaron came through, and he was talking about, it was a workshop entitled Experiencing the Oneness. So then Judith Coates started channeling Jesus. And all of a sudden, the tears are rolling down my cheeks, and what is this? How am I losing my composure? What's happening to me? And it took me 10 or 15 minutes to actually get it back together. And the morning progressed, and then Jeshua was talking again through Judith, and he said something to the effect is, sometimes I project an image into the world, and I go to the shopping malls, and I walk around and I just smile at people, because they're having a bad day, or maybe they're struggling trying to figure out what to buy. So I'm just there being helpful. And I was just stunned. I said, oh my God, you mean you have to pay attention to who's walking around Briarwood? You never know who's going to be there, right? So the opportunity to ask questions came up. And I raised my hand. Ooh, call on me. And I got called on, and I said, this question is for Jeshua. I was fascinated by your description of projecting an image into the world. And I'm wondering if the image that you projected into Glenda Green's studio for the portrait was historically accurate, or was it for a current purpose? And Judith walked over, and she was about 6 or 7 feet in front of me, and Yeshua was talking through her body, and he said, well, actually, it was both. It was, in fact, historically accurate, and I intended that it would be a call to remembrance. And he said, at this point, the tears are rolling down my cheeks, and I re-experience it every time I tell the story. He said, the tears that you find in your eyes are tears of recognition. For indeed, my beloved brother, you did and you do know me. And I was just, hello? I didn't talk for at least 2 hours. I was just totally stunned. And that is what makes me today, even 16 years after that experience, a practicing mystic. And I invite you, each of you, to engage in the process of being open and receptive to mystical communications, because we are truly, all of us, entitled and able to get that message from the other side, so that you will know that you are a divine expression. So I want to close with this quote from Evelyn Underhill, who wrote a classic book on mysticism. She said, mysticism is the prosecution of a spiritual and intangible quest, the finding of a way out of illusion or a way back to absolute truth. It is an intimate and personal adventure. So go for it. And now it's your turn.